Celestial Billboarding by Auguste Villiers de l'Isle-Adam. A strange notion, one that might even draw a wry smile from a financier. It concerns the sky. But let us be clear, this is the sky considered from a strictly serious industrial perspective. Certain historical events, today scientifically verified and explained, or nearly so, such as Constantine's labarum, the crosses reflected upon the clouds above snow-covered plains, the refraction phenomena of Mount Brocken, and the peculiar mirages of the northern latitudes, had long intrigued and, in a manner of speaking, spurred the competitive spirit of a distinguished engineer from the south, one Monsieur Grave. A few years ago, this gentleman conceived the luminous idea of putting the vast expanses of the night to use, of bringing, in short, the sky up to the standards of the modern age. After all, what good are these azure vaults if they serve no practical purpose beyond feeding the fevered imaginations of the last remaining dreamers? Would it not be an undertaking of legitimate public service? And let us say it, why not? A feat worthy of the admiration of posterity, to convert these barren spaces into something truly instructive and profitably engaging. To cultivate these immense unclaimed lands of the heavens and render them at long last a source of solid revenue, transforming those boundless, transparent wastelands into lucrative real estate. Let there be no illusions. This is no sentimental enterprise. Business is business. It is high time to summon the cooperation and, if necessary, the determination of serious-minded individuals to assess the value and financial potential of this unexpected discovery. At first glance, the very premise seems to border on the impossible, indeed, on sheer madness. To clear the celestial wilderness, to assign value to the stars, to exploit the twilight hours, to systematize the night itself, to turn the firmament, hitherto unproductive, into something profitable. What a vision! What a tangled web of difficulties to overcome. Yet, armed with the spirit of progress, what problem could man not solve? Filled with this conviction, and certain that if Benjamin Franklin the printer, had succeeded in wresting lightning from the heavens, then surely it must be possible, all the more so, to harness the sky for humanitarian purposes. Monsieur Grave studied, travelled, compared, invested, toiled, and at long last, after refining the colossal lenses and enormous reflectors of American engineers, particularly those from Philadelphia and Quebec, whose efforts, lacking a tenacious genius at the helm, had lapsed into the realms of cant and puffery, Monsieur Grave now proposes, equipped with his duly registered patents, to offer, without delay, to our great manufacturing industries and even to small-scale merchants, the boon of absolute publicity. No competitor could possibly rival the system devised by our great popularizer. Imagine, if you will, some of our great commercial hubs, Lyon, Bordeaux, and the like, at that hour when evening descends. One can already picture the movement, the pulse of life, that extraordinary animation which, in our time, only financial interests are capable of bestowing upon a serious city. Then, suddenly, mighty bursts of magnesium light or electrical beams, amplified 100,000-fold, flare up from the crest of some flower-covered hill, the delight of young newlyweds, a hill much like our own dear Montmartre. These radiant jets, funneled through colossal multicoloured reflectors, cast abruptly into the depths of the night sky, somewhere between Sirius and Aldebaran, the bull's fiery eye, if not among the Hyades themselves, the graceful image of a young man holding a sash, emblazoned with those words we read daily with renewed delight. We refund the gold for any purchase that fails to delight. Can one begin to fathom the transformation upon the faces of the crowd, the glow of illuminations, the thunderous applause, the jubilant cries? After the first, wholly excusable shock of surprise, old enemies embrace, the bitterest domestic resentments are forgotten. People settle beneath the vine trellises to better enjoy this spectacle, at once magnificent and instructive, while the name of Monsieur Grave, borne upon the winds, ascends towards immortality. A moment's reflection suffices to grasp the staggering implications of such an ingenious invention. Would it not be enough to startle even the Great Bear itself if, suddenly, between its sublime paws, there appeared the ominous question, corsets, yes or no? Or better yet, Would it not be a sight to alarm the feebler minds among us, perhaps even stir the vigilance of the clergy, to see projected upon the very face of our satellite, upon the luminous countenance of the moon itself, that striking dry-point etching we have all admired along the boulevards, bearing the legendary inscription, "At the hirsute"? What stroke of genius if, within one of the delicate angles forming the V of the sculptor's atelier, there shone forth at last, "Venus Cola, reduced edition"? What astonishment if, in connection with those fine liqueurs so often recommended for their various merits, one were to glimpse in the southern reaches of Regulus, that royal heart of the lion, at the very tip of Virgo's sheaf, an angel holding a flask in his hand, while from his lips unfurled a scroll bearing the immortal words, "My God, how delicious!" In short, one need hardly elaborate to grasp that this is an advertising enterprise without precedent, with infinite resources and unlimited liability, one that for the first time in its history even the government might see fit to endorse. It would be idle to dwell on the truly eminent services that such a discovery is destined to render to society and to progress. But consider, for instance, the application of glass photography and the lampascope method on such a scale, magnified 100,000-fold, for the pursuit of fugitive bankers or notorious criminals. The culprit, henceforth as easy to follow as the refrain of a song, would scarcely dare show his nose at the window of his railway carriage without beholding high in the heavens his own incriminating portrait. Think of the possibilities. Elections, for instance. What an advantage, what supremacy, what an unbelievable simplification of propaganda methods which are always so costly. No more of those little blue, yellow or tricolour flyers that deface our walls, incessantly repeating the same with the maddening persistence of a street jingle. No more of those outrageously expensive and often unflattering campaign portraits that fail to achieve their sole purpose, namely, inspiring sympathy in the electorate, whether due to the unfortunate features of the candidate's face or the lack of majesty in his overall bearing. For, let us be honest, in politics, a man's actual worth is a dangerous, even harmful, and certainly secondary consideration. What truly matters is that he appears dignified in the eyes of his constituents. Suppose, for instance, that in the last election the portraits of Messieurs B and A had appeared each evening at life-size, just beneath the star Beta in the Lyre constellation. It would have been an entirely fitting placement, no doubt, since these statesmen once mounted Pegasus himself, if fame is to be believed. Both of them would have been displayed there on the eve of the ballot, both wearing a faint smile, their brows shadowed with a becoming anxiety, and yet managing to maintain an air of confidence. Indeed, with the lampascope technique, a small mechanism could have subtly altered their facial expressions at will. They might have been made to smile at the future, to shed a tear over our disappointments, to open their mouths, furrow their brows, flare their nostrils in righteous indignation, assume that air of solemnity that is so indispensable to the orator, and which lends such extraordinary weight to his thoughts. Every voter would have had the opportunity to make an informed choice, to observe his candidate in advance, and, at long last, not be forced, as the saying goes, to buy a pig in a poke. Indeed, one might even argue that without Monsieur Grave's discovery, universal suffrage is little more than a farce. Let us therefore prepare ourselves for the moment, one of these mornings, or rather one of these evenings, when Monsieur Grave, backed by the support of an enlightened government, will commence his grand experiments. Until then, let the sceptics have their fun. Just as in the days when Monsieur de Lesseps spoke of uniting oceans, something he accomplished despite the naysayers, science once again will have the final word, and Monsieur excessively grave will let them laugh. Thanks to him, at long last, the sky will serve a purpose. It will at last possess intrinsic value.